for 16 years, you know someone, before, maybe he was in the position that he was in. And, he's been very supportive of me for, a long time. So why does that make such a big deal? I don't understand that.
What's that? The Trump thing?
If you know someone and you're, it doesn't mean you agree with everything that they, say or do.
So that was Tom Brady speaking on a 16-year friendship with Donald Trump, saying he doesn't understand why everybody has an issue and thinks it's such a big deal, their relationship. Will Kane here with us.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good
How
morning.
we doing?
I'm good. Generally taking the high road. A lot of people asking me today, what jersey are you going to wear? You going to wear Matt Ryan? You going to wear Tom Brady? Going to make sure Stephen A. has his tissues handy?
Yeah.
I'm taking the high road.
Well, that's a low blow.
You're not going to wear Rodgers?
Now.
You ain't been sick before?
No, it's the tissues you threw at me last Monday. It's the tissues you tossed around to mock my grief that they want now. Right. That reciprocates.
Okay. Appreciate you being above it.
Right.
Keep it classy.
Let's not act like it's permanent.
Clarity purposes. Clarity purposes. Go ahead.
On that note, I want to start with Max here. Do you agree that it shouldn't be such a big deal that Tom Brady has a relationship with Donald Trump?
No, I don't agree with that. First of all, Brady's defense of his position, and I think he is in a position where he needs to explain himself, is a good one. He's a personal friend. For many years that predate Trump's ascension in politics or entry at this level.
Wait, just to be clear, you're saying it is a big deal or it's not?
It is a big deal.
Okay.
But Brady's defense of himself is a legitimate one. Now, there may be an issue. What do you mean defense of yourself? Why do you have to defend someone who was duly elected president? Well, number one, you have a relationship with the president of the United States. No matter who that is, that's a big deal. People will be interested in that. Wow, a long-standing relationship with the newly elected president. That's a big deal. Two, there was rhetoric in this campaign that was unlike anything we've heard. In fact, many people, were so turned off by the rhetoric that normally, though they support a political party, generally speaking, they couldn't support this candidate. So it was not. Let's not pretend that the campaign wasn't unusual. It was unusual in terms of the divisive nature of the rhetoric in particular. And three, since he's become president, many more unusual things have occurred. Public proclamations undermining NATO, publicly supporting or admiring at least Vladimir Putin, appointing a medical doctor, head of housing and urban development, or someone who wanted to get rid of the Department of Energy, head of the Department of Energy, or wanted to anyway, then Rick Perry comes out and admits he didn't know what it was. Like, those are unusual things. You can place value on them and defend them however you want, but they're highly unusual. So you have a long-standing relationship with the President of the United States. It was a particularly unusual, to say the least, campaign. And then so far it's been an unusual presidency. People are going to be interested in your relationship with that person, of course.
Max, I can concede nearly every point that you made and still contend that you've lost your ever-loving mind. I can tell you this. Surely this election has been unusual, at least in your and my lifetime. Surely the things that happened both before in terms of rhetoric and afterwards, even in terms of action, have been unusual. You can have legitimate concerns, but the sentence that you put forward, that Tom Brady needs to defend himself or Tom Brady needs to explain himself, the operative word that shows that you've lost your mind, that you've gone too far, is the word need. Tom Brady does not need to justify himself to you. Tom Brady does not need to explain himself to you or anybody else. I understand your interest. I understand your curiosity. I understand the public's appetite to continue to talk about Donald Trump. But that does not translate into the need for a public inquisition of anyone that disagrees with you. That's where, over the past 3 to 6 months, the public, at least in part, has lost its mind, Max Kellerman. And it is, let me just give you the examples of this. Now, you are calling for someone who has an association, a connection to the President of the United States to come to account to explain his relationship. I don't care if Tom Brady put a hat in the locker. I don't care if he invited the criticism. It doesn't warrant your inquisition. It doesn't stop there. I will. By the end of this segment, I will be vilified for defending a proposition that I neither voted for and have written publicly against. I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I have publicly written against it. But by the end of this segment, I will be made, or people will suggest I need to account for defending Tom Brady here. But yet, 1, 2, 3, it doesn't stop there. After the Women's March this weekend, Where's Taylor Swift? There's a public outcry. Taylor Swift did not sufficiently show out her solidarity. She didn't show up at one of the marches this weekend. So we have gone from you cannot be connected to him, you cannot make a rational, perspective-based argument, to if you do not wholeheartly and fully agree with the dissent, then you, my friend, need to be pulled into the public square, and you need to come to account. You need to be held accountable.
Sure, I want to respond to that. I think I admire your principled stance here. The fact is, you publicly wrote against who is now the President of the United States and didn't support.
5 years ago.
Right, and there are reasons.
Way ahead of everybody else.
Sure, and so you shouldn't be vilified for this perspective, because you're right, in addition to everything else, it's also a slippery slope. Tom Brady can be friends with whomever he likes, and he can support whomever he likes or vote for whomever he likes, and I will be the first one to defend that, vigorously defend all those propositions. But as a member of the press and as a sports fan and as a citizen of the United States, it is completely, you're hung up on the word need, that is my opinion, obviously. It is completely reasonable for people to say they want to hear more about this from Tom Brady. Now, when I say need, does it mean he is legally held to account for himself? Of course not. But there is a curiosity about it. And
One thing,
think
I don't just think it's a curiosity, though, Max. I think they want to criticize him. They're judging him for it.
That is the job of the press, is to be critical.
But it's not just being interested in it. They're holding it against him.
Yes, because the job of the press is to be critical, and people and citizens should think with a critical mind.
Stephen A.?
Go ahead. No, finish your point.
As I said, the job of the press is not to find private citizens and then chastise them for their public views. The job of the press is not to even find celebrities and chastise them for their private opinions. The job of the press is to hold power to account. The job of the press is to look with skepticism and criticism at power itself. I will never deny you that standing in front of the President of the United States, whether or not he have a D or an R in front or behind his name, is the job of the press. It's not to take the quarterback of the New England Patriots and tell us why. Why must you have that hat in your
that's
locker?
not. You're assuming the chastising, which may actually occur afterward, but they're simply asking questions. That's not chastising.
We're not stopping at the asking of the question.
Well, it depends how he answers.
Let me take this in a slightly different direction. First of all, let's understand that everybody having a problem with Tom Brady now, in terms of the inquisition that he's being exposed to, I think folks are late to the party. I'm not talking about WEEI because they spoke about it with him months ago. He's local there. They do their job. They do an excellent job. I'm a guest on their shows a lot of times. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about national media. To wait until the Super Bowl to ask Tom Brady questions about Donald Trump leaves a lot to be desired. Here's why it's so relevant. Because at the time that Tom Brady, if you remember, when the tapes came out about Donald Trump in terms of what he was saying about women, okay, grabbing them and doing all of this other stuff. That was the day that Tom Brady returned from his 4-game suspension. And he was playing against the Cleveland Browns. And he was right there. And it was the day of the debate, the second debate against Hillary Clinton, if I remember correctly. For him not to be asked on that day, when the debate was that night, when the news came out about Trump and what he had said just 24 hours earlier and was spoofed on Saturday Night Live by Alec Baldwin. I mean, for folks not to ask that question, see, that's when the... Stay with me here.
I'm with you.
That's when the cynicism elevates. Because what I'm saying is, forget Tom Brady. He's not the villain here. What I'm saying is that you bet your bottom dollar, had that been anybody else, they would have been asked at that moment. But that's a big, big deal, Will. And the reason why it's a big, big deal is because you're wondering about the treatment he received at that particular moment in time compared to what others might have under those conditions. Under those conditions. I got other points, but go ahead.
Yeah, but here's my problem with that, and I don't think it's a departure from a debate Max and I are having. I don't think your timeline is correct. I think Tom Brady has been asked to be accountable for having a hat in his locker, a relationship he's had for well over, what is it, a year and a half now. It was in the fall of 2015 that these questions began for Tom Brady. And the fact that those have continued, Stephen A., for the last 18 months shows he cannot satisfy it to the media or the public's desire.
No.
The point is this. It's not about, to Molly's point, asking the question. At some point, what answer is it do you want from Tom Brady?
You want to know, which...
Guys,
which statements that Trump has made and positions he's taken don't disqualify him from Tom Brady's admiration.
All right,
that is
now,
one of the questions that would be
whether
asked.
we agree or disagree, I got a few points I want to get off my chest now.
All right.
Having said what I just said, and I totally disagree with you by that, by the way, let's understand something here. Tom Brady is a football player. Tom Brady is not a politician. Tom Brady, as far as I'm concerned, can have whatever friends he wants. It's none of our damn business. Now, Trump being the president and spewing the rhetoric that he spewed, one might sit up there and look at Tom Brady and say, justify this, or justify the level of sensitivity that people may believe you don't have, because even though you're a football player, if they believe this man has been offensive to immigrants, if they believe this man has been offensive to women, if they believe this man has been offended to black folks, anybody else in that position might get asked, don't you care? And ultimately, that's what they're asking Tom Brady. Whether that's fair or not is something that could be debated, but it's clear that's where they're going. Now, for me personally, the reason why I don't have a problem with them, listen, man, do you know what they say about conservatives like a Sean Hannity? Do you know what they say about conservatives like Mark Levin? I know both of them. I speak to both of them. I respect the hell out of both of them, and I disagree with them about 75% of the time, which
that
they
is
both,
possible.
which they both know. Which they both know. So ultimately, this leads towards your point. Hold on, this leads towards his point. This notion that we have to agree with people we get along with. No, we do not.
Will, let me jump in real quick. I think that is a very good point.
Important. And that's what Tom Brady was quoted as saying yesterday, which I believe he's absolutely right about.
I think that's a good point. I think that's what people are curious about, and I think that's what he's
But they're not curious. They're judging him.
Well,
they're judging him.
Yes,
But don't say the word curious, Max.
Well,
they're not curious. They're judging him.
That's the key word.
First, you're curious about what he does and doesn't agree with. Are there things that rise to the level that would disqualify this person from your admiration? If so, what are they?
Stay right there.
If not, what about these things?
Will and Molly, let me take it to you this way. I believe, based on some of your views, I'm not asking you anything. I'm just speaking.
Sure.
You lean strongly to the left.
Okay.
If you're sitting here talking to me.
On many things I do, on some things I don't.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not judging. If you're talking to me, Max, you're listening.
Sure.
If Sean Hannity was sitting in this seat, I don't think you would just be listening. I think you would have preconceived notions. I think you would be ready to pounce on and judge because somebody is diametrically opposed so strongly to views you may have. I'm simply saying with Tom Brady, when people are asking him those questions, let's not sit here and act like, oh, we're just being inquisitive. No, they're ready to pounce on him if he doesn't say exactly what they feel he should say.
It is fair for members of the media and concerned citizens to say, after a certain amount of information is acquired about somebody, collected about somebody, you know what you're dealing with.
Just don't deny that it's curiosity.
You know what you have come to, as a human being, as a mature human being,
just don't deny that.
You know what you're dealing with.
Just don't deny that it's judgment. It's not curiosity.
Who's denying that it's
judgment?
Not judgment?
It's judgment.
So
first,
you would like to collect information, which is the job of the journalist, and then people, of course, will judge.
But a football player has every right. I'll give it to you, Will. A football player has every right, Max. A football player has every right to sit in his seat and be in a position where he says, I want to be judged as a football player, not about all of this stuff that I don't have anything to do with. He does have a right to that.
And I will defend,
he does have a right to that.
Defend his legal right to
Go ahead, Will.
But not his moral right. And I think Stephen A's point, here's why I think this is happening, Max. I think there's been an elevation of politics as your ultimate moral arbiter. It's as though politics is religion, and the ballot box is your temple, and that how you check that box is your moral judgment. And that is wrong. Life is bigger than politics. There's community, there's church, there's how you conduct business. There are many things in life much more important than how you vote. But here we are today talking about the way that Tom Brady might vote. And let me tell you something. Listen, Max.
That's not
by the way,
case.
this is on a weekend.
I agree.
Let me finish.
I agree.
This is on a weekend.
Max, just let him finish.
This is on a weekend when certain celebrities talked about the desire to bomb the White House, Madonna, or others compared this to Hitler in the streets and Ashley Judd. And we are calling Tom Brady to account for a relationship.
I agree with your point. I understand your point about judging people based on their political preferences. That's not what this is, and that's what makes this different, and that's the reason you didn't support the candidate or wrote against this candidate, is because it crosses merely ballot or political biases or preferences. It comes to decency and ethics, yes. And so it becomes a larger question when it comes to this president.
I'm saying this.
President.
I promise
for you, me, and others.
You know, my past is well known. I've been in political analysis. I've been in debate for quite some time. I'm saying this not pedantically. I'm not saying this patronizingly. Sure. Let me tell you this, that if the goal of the movement against Donald Trump is to find heretics and find not converts and to find someone who is not extreme enough, it is a losing proposition. From Jacobins to the John Birch Society, you are on the wrong path. Your job is not to find Tom Brady and flog him. Your job is to persuade people to your side, and it's off to a horrendous start.
I think that's a fair point.
Okay. For me, it comes down to this. The fact that Donald Trump lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million to Hillary means nothing to me. With a presidential election, you know the game. It's the Electoral College vote. He got 304 of them. He only needed 270. He won fair and square. Over 62.9 million people voted for this man. And you do have people out there. I didn't vote for him, but you do have people out there who are thoroughly convinced. Anybody who voted for this man is sick, they're demented, they're lost, etc., etc. And by virtue of that, when they're asking everybody from a politician to an educated citizen to a football player about their support for this man, they are walking in there with preconceived notions about who you are and what you stand for because of what rhetoric he spewed during the election. We have to get to a point.
Make that connection at all?
No, I'm saying we have to get to a point where we have to ask ourselves, is it fair to generically make that connection? You can look at an individual because you're fair-minded. You can look at an individual and dissect the difference between somebody who supports him because of those reasons that you fear, or because of the economy, or because of other issues that they're concerned about. But a lot of people out there are not making that distinction. They're not drawing that schism. They're sitting there and they're lumping everybody. If you voted for him, this is who you are. You're xenophobic. You're racist.
Tom Brady has rights as an American citizen and to be a private
especially
citizen.
Since he's ignorant to the politics.
When it comes to his political leanings, etc. However, he is a public figure, and it is publicly known that he did support or has a relationship with the President of the United States.
Plausible.
And it's an unusual president.
But it is plausible. But it is plausible that their relationship is strictly on a golf course and involves sports. I have spoken to Donald Trump on several occasions.
I have as well.
It has never been about politics. It has never been about politics. It was always about sports. I didn't know what the hell I was going to hear from him until I saw him during the election.
Yep, they were friends long before he ever got involved in politics. Appreciate you being with us.
Gotta be fair.
A little bit later in the show.
We got to be fair.
Let's leave it there. President Donald Trump will do his first one-on-one interview with ABC World News. That is tonight. Anchor David Moore, President Trump. The first interview airs Wednesday, tomorrow, January 25th on ABC at 10 p.m. Eastern. Again, that is tomorrow. Coming up, are the guys as excited about the idea of Tony Romo going to Denver as the players seem to be? Can't wait for this discussion. Also coming up after the break, three-time world champion and former All-ACC football player Roman Reigns will be in the house. Stay tuned for that.
I want to make sure that I'm clear when it comes to what I got to say about the Cowboys. But Super Bowl contenders? Hell no.